But have you ever noticed that within diet culture, they have all these rules and they tell you just like to restrict, and then they shame you for like eating and nourishing your body, right?
Hello YouTube, and welcome to the Body Honesty Project. My name is Lydia, and today we will be discussing restriction. You see, restriction seems to be this word that the fat acceptance community has latched onto as a representation of all things evil. But is restriction really that bad? Or is it simply a tool that all human beings need to use? I think we have a lot to unpack here. So why don't we start by watching this next clip about restriction, then come back and discuss. What is restriction? Restriction is a limiting condition or measure. Why do we restrict? We can restrict for many reasons, but mainly we restrict to prevent harm. We restrict our speed to prevent accidents. We age restrict mature content to prevent harm to young minds. We restrict the amount of alcohol we consume so we don't get intoxicated. And we restrict how much we spend so that we can afford to pay our living expenses. What are the benefits of restriction? Restriction can help you realize long-term goals. It can make you a better decision maker and make you more focused. So why is it hard to do? Your brain is constantly fighting short-term versus long-term gratification, and the short-term signals are much stronger than the long-term ones. Are there downsides to restricting? There can be. Some people become obsessive with their restriction. They are a slave to their black and white thinking. When they restrict, they are good, and when they don't, they are bad. There is no middle ground. So, should we just stop restricting if it's so hard on us? No, the answer to problematic restriction is not unfettered permission. That's just replacing one black and white decision with another. The answer is choice, because between every trigger and response, there is a choice. And when you have a choice, you can weigh the consequences and decide. You may choose one path more often than others, but it's a path you choose rather than be forced on it. So, in essence, we use restriction to help us achieve our long-term goals. We don't buy the new iPhone now because we need money for rent. We don't go out on Tuesday night when we have an early meeting Wednesday morning. So we restrict certain behaviors that we want to do in favor of achieving longer-term goals. So why does the fat acceptance community think that restriction is so bad? Well, let's dive right into the TikToks and see.
Yo, F-R-E-K. I'm a movie, I should be on replay. I'm trying to F you.
Last week in one of my What I Eat in a Day videos, I had talked about how I was really struggling with my ED that day and how it was really wanting me to restrict. And so in order to get myself to eat, I made sure that I ate my safe foods, which in all honesty weren't exactly as nutrient dense as some other foods were. And the number of comments that I got that were like, you just shouldn't have eaten, or you couldn't have like forced yourself to eat something else. No, because we don't restrict anymore. And if the difference is between not eating at all and eating something that may not be as nutrient dense as other foods, you eat the not as nutrient dense foods.
It's okay to eat, and it's okay to eat what you want to eat. Like, I want a burrito. I was craving a burrito. I just had a burrito yesterday, but I want it again, so I'm eating it again. Like, it can be that easy, y'all. It's great.
I think I'm dying. But that's okay. Bimo always bounces back. Not this time. But I'm supposed to save the drift. That's my job. Now your job is to be there.
So the first point I'd like to discuss is that if you stop restricting triggering foods, then they won't be so triggering. Now, I think that this could apply to some people that actually do struggle with restrictive EDs, but I don't think that it applies to the fat acceptance community. They are turning this restriction into theater. Like they are actually struggling to eat these foods that we know they've been eating all along. Just see.
Hi. Welcome back to trying off-limits foods, which are foods that I would not allow myself to eat when I was wrapped up in diet culture. Today we're doing ice cream cones. I would never use my extra calories on an ice cream cone because I was already being bad by having the ice cream itself. So I got some ice cream cones today and we're gonna try it. So let's see. Good job.
And this, embarrassingly so, resonates so incredibly deeply with me. I was queen of opposite land when I was in my teens, and oh my goodness, must I have been a pill to deal with. I couldn't admit to any of my failures and instead would insist that it was always the opposite, exactly what they're doing here. If I went to a skating competition and fell on my butt several times and I knew I did not train, and if somebody said, doesn't look like you practiced, I would say, actually, I overtrained. I trained so hard that my muscles were tired and that's why that happened. Or if I didn't study for a test and got a bad mark, I would say, oh no, I actually studied so hard. I was studying so hard that I fell asleep or my mind went blank and I actually knew all the answers. No, I didn't. I was just lying. I would always try to figure out what the opposite was, and if I could get the person to believe the opposite, it would make me feel less bad. Like, this is a very, very immature tactic, and I have done it myself, and I can see these people doing the exact same thing. It's not that they're restricting food. They want permission to be a glutton. The next point I'd like to address is that restriction is a symptom of an ED. No, it isn't. It can be if you are overly restrictive, but know what also is an ED? Being overly permissive. It's still black and white thinking. You're just picking the other side. What we really need here is the ability to make informed decisions. You have a choice at every turn. It's not always yes or always no. Like, I know when I have been overly restrictive. I know that there are times in my life where I've been on a very strict diet and I wouldn't touch anything at a party or a fancy dinner. Like, I would be too fussy with my calories and that would interrupt my evening and my overall enjoyment of life because I was obsessed with the calories. So that would be overly restrictive. But we also don't need to be overly permissive and just eat without thinking about any of the consequences. I like to think every time I eat if the food is going to help me in any way. Like, am I hungry? Do I need energy? Do I need caffeine to wake up a little bit? How is this food going to help me? And emotional help is a valid reason as well. But my mental health is part of my overall health. I need to address my physical needs as well as my emotional needs. And if I only emotionally eat, my body won't have the energy that it requires to live. When I think of times when I was overly restrictive, I would go to parties and I would turn down cake and cookies and any sort of sweet treat because I wanted to stick to my diet. And when I look back, I think that was silly. I probably should have just had a piece of cake and enjoyed it. But on the flip side, when I'm overly permissive, I'll eat things that I don't even really like. Like, if I crave something sweet and I open up the box of cookies and it's stale, should I continue to eat it? Because I'm not even going to really enjoy it. But, oh, it's sugar, and I'm permitting myself. I'm being permissive. I'm not restricting anymore. But if I think for a second about the calories in the cookie, go, oh, this is a stale cookie. I don't need the calories anyway, and toss it. That's being restrictive. I'd also like to talk about the Splotch Maker clip where she said to just eat the burrito. It's not that hard. And telling people just to eat whatever the hell you want without internally questioning yourself of, do I want it? Does it give me energy? Will this make me feel good? Will this satisfy my needs? Is bad. If we always just eat what we want without care, we're not going to fuel our bodies correctly, especially if you are dealing with addiction to processed foods. I know that mental restriction can be very difficult, but disregarding the physical and mental effects that are the result of unfettered permission around food causes way more damage. A lot of these people claim that they are in recovery from an ED, and I'm not going to question them on that. But what I do question is if they are in recovery, what sort of professional help are they getting? Because as someone who has been to therapy many times, I cannot think of a single therapist that would push black and white thinking. And the comment of, we don't restrict anymore, or that's not how this works, that they only have two choices, either to not eat or eat junk food, that screams black and white thinking. And the first thing that therapists have done, at least with me, is we talk about making decisions. In cognitive-based therapy, we talk about the triggers and the responses and inserting a pause in the middle to make a decision. This whole notion of you have two choices is the absolute opposite of what any therapist has ever told me in these situations. Now, again, I am not a therapist. I don't know if there are other therapists out there, but for someone who has seen many professionals, we never, ever, ever endorse black and white thinking. The last clip had more of a positive message where it was to love and accept who you are and not feel the need to restrict and diet again just because you gained a few pounds. And I agree and disagree. I don't agree with, for me personally, ever dieting again. What it is whenever I gain weight, I just remember what my normal lifestyle is and go back to doing that. And that is my diet, and that is how I get back to normal. It's usually just a check-in going, you haven't walked in a while, or you've been snacking a lot of candy recently. How about we stop that? And then we just go back to normal. So I don't think that I need to restrict that badly. It's more of a revert to lifestyle. And I understand that we shouldn't necessarily get stressed about a couple extra pounds as long as we are living healthy lives. So I get that part. But again, it's not an always true condition. So I'll give you the example in my 25-pound yo-yo. If I'm at the top of my yo-yo, so if I'm around like 145 pounds, I'm probably not happy. I am probably out of shape. I'm probably not moving very much. I'm probably eating a lot of crap. So I do need to restrict a little so I can get back to living my best possible life. But in my healthy weight range, the tables say that I could be as low as like 110 pounds. I can't. I know that weight would drive me crazy and it's not worth it. So when I'm at this weight now, should I be restricting to get down another 15 pounds? No, that's completely unnecessary. So there's no need to overly restrict yourself into something that you are not. But at the same time, when you know that you're not being healthy, when you are really, really honest with yourself and you know, I'm sitting on my butt a lot. I am snacking a lot. I go to bed with a big bowl of ice cream every night. You know that there's a problem. And a little bit of restriction is not a bad thing. I'd like to end this video with one last clip from the anti-diet pilot.
Let's just be honest. Let's just be real.
Now I know she's being cheeky here, but it's true, isn't it? Because when you are addicted to something, restricting it feels impossible. And I truly believe that this is food addiction, but I'm not going to get into that here. That's going to be a much, much bigger topic and a different video. But I just thought it was interesting that she posts this as a joke, and I actually think it's the truth. So this video was about restriction, but I don't think that the problem here ever was restriction. Restriction is the word that they are all hiding behind. The problem that they have is guilt. It's not restriction. Someone who has a problem with restriction struggles in their mind with the restrictive voices. I shouldn't eat, I shouldn't eat, I shouldn't eat. They look at food, then they don't eat, and then they suffer the consequences of not eating. Then they repeat the cycle. I shouldn't eat, I shouldn't eat, I shouldn't eat, they don't eat, and then they repeat. These people might have that conversation in their head, but it's more like, I shouldn't eat, but I want to eat, but I shouldn't eat, but I want to eat, but I'm going to eat, and then they eat, and then they feel guilty for the behavior. This is a different problem than restricting. Yes, restriction can be part of it, but that is not the only problem. And if we're truly, truly, truly honest with ourselves, it's not even the main problem. The problem is our inability to make intelligent decisions and to take accountability for our actions. I agree that all of these people have a problem that needs help, But the solution to the help is not unfettered permission around food. That is just replacing black and white thinking with white and black thinking. And that doesn't fix anything. So until next time, stay body positive, but also body honest.